reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening Ghana-Gabon relations with a focus on expanding economic cooperation, promoting regional integration, and creating opportunities for their citizens.
Consultation.
Deepen common efforts to fight against maritime piracy, illegal traffic, and all other threats that affect maritime security. Africa must be able to strengthen its peace and security and have it in their own hands. I'd like to express my gratitude for your active participation during the G7 Plus in the Gulf of Guinea in 2026.
President John Mahama highlighted the need for skills development and climate action to drive Africa's economic growth and transformation.
Education and human capital development should continue to serve as vital pillars of our partnerships. Greater collaboration amongst our universities, technical institutions, and research institutions, including through scholarship programs, facility exchanges, scientific research, and technical and vocational skill training, all these will contribute significantly to building the skilled workforce that Africa requires for transformation. Climate change presents another important area for strategic collaboration. Gabon's internationally recognized leadership in forest conservation and Ghana's commitment to sustainable development provide a firm basis for closer cooperation in biodiversity conservation, carbon markets, renewable energy, climate resilience, sustainable forest management, and advocacy for increased climate financing for Africa.
As part of his official visit, President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema planted a tree at the Jubilee House Gardens, symbolizing the enduring friendship and strong relations between Ghana and Gabon. Reporting for GBC News, Celestine Avi, Presidency.
So President John Mahama will, from August 2 to 5, 2026, begin a state visit to Jamaica at the invitation of the country's Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness. The visit will provide an opportunity to strengthen the long-standing friendship and shared heritage between Ghana and Jamaica, with discussions expected to focus on trade and investment, health, education, tourism, defense, arts and culture. Ahead of the visit, the President of Gabon, General Brice Nguema, is expected in Ghana from July 28, 2026 to 30 July 2026 for an official visit aimed at deepening bilateral relations between Ghana and Gabon, particularly in trade, investment, agriculture, fisheries, energy, tourism, education and maritime security.
That are upcoming, and I would like to brief you very quickly on them. The first is the official visit of the President of the Gabonese Republic to Ghana from the 27th to the 29th of July 2026. This official visit by His Excellency General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, President of the Gabonese Republic, will take place from 28 to 30th July 2026. The visit will mark an important milestone in Ghana-Gabon relations and provide the opportunity to reaffirm the commitment of both countries to political dialogue and deepen cooperation in trade, investment, agriculture, fisheries, energy, tourism, education, and maritime security. The second important visit I wish to highlight is the state visit of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama to Jamaica. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, from the 2nd to the 5th of August 2026, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama will be undertaking a state visit to Jamaica at the invitation of Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. He will participate as a special guest at Jamaica's 64th Independence Anniversary celebrations. The visit will provide an opportunity to strengthen the long-standing friendship and shared heritage between Ghana and Jamaica through high-level political engagements. President Mahama will hold bilateral discussions with Prime Minister Holness to advance cooperation in trade and investment, health, education, tourism, defense, arts and culture, and people-to-people exchanges.
Now, as Ghana's Supreme Court marks 150 years of upholding the rule of law, the Vice President, Professor Nana Jinopokwajuman, has reaffirmed the government's commitment to protecting judicial independence and strengthening the administration of justice. She says a strong democracy can only thrive on credible and trusted institutions. The Vice President was speaking at the Grand Derby of the Supreme Court, Ghana, at 150-year celebration.
But a confident democracy requires confident institutions. We therefore regard the strengthening of the justice sector as an essential investment in Ghana's democratic future and national development agenda. Recently, one important milestone has been completed, and that's the work of the Constitution Review Committee. I'm pleased to state that government is carefully considering the committee's recommendations, and in keeping with our commitment to openness and constitutional governance, will issue a position paper setting out government's considered position. We approach that process in a spirit of partnership, guided always by the conviction that constitutional reform must strengthen public confidence, deepen democratic accountability, and preserve the delicate balance upon which our constitutional order rests. We are particularly encouraged by the thoughtful attention the Review Committee has paid to the administration of justice. Government remains committed to working with the leadership of the judiciary, parliament, academia, civil society to ensure that reforms advancing the administration of justice receive the careful attention they deserve.
Chief Justice Paul Bafo-Boni has announced plans that the Judiciary Service will begin the automation of court operations nationwide from October 1, 2026 as part of efforts to modernize the justice delivery system. Now, speaking at the Derby of the 150th anniversary of the Supreme Court, Justice Paul Bafo-Boni said the intended changes are aimed at improving efficiency, managing of cases, reducing delays, and ease access to justice through the use of technology. And let's go to Parliament, where members of Parliament have expressed sharply contrasting views on the government's 2026 mid-year budget review, with the minority accusing the administration of under-executing the budget and failing to invest in key sectors needed to drive economic growth, while the majority maintains that the government's fiscal measures have restored macroeconomic stability and improved prices conditions.
Expect a net realized revenue of 3.71 billion. In 2018, they budgeted to raise 49.40 billion. They ended up by getting 46.81 billion, losing about 2.59 billion. But Mr. Speaker, the same finance minister they say he's not spending, in 2025, he budgeted to raise 229.95 billion. He had 226.49 billion. He only lost 3.46 billion. On what grounds? What temerity do you have to say that Atu-Forcing is not raising enough revenue?
This is not the first time a finance minister has presented a mid-year review and has not requested for more resources. In fact, what has happened for the first time is that this is the first time a finance minister has presented the mid-year review and has not been able to tell the country how much of the economic program has been executed and how much has not been executed. This government, this minister, made promises of projects, jobs, and programs to the tune of 30 billion Ghana cedis which it has not executed as at half year. As at half year, they have under-executed the budget. What on aju will go, what's the young country there? Inflation 5%, where we marry? Appropriate scale for Chrome to be antazi. Now inflation now perform. To which, Mr. Speaker, our mothers who sell in the market say they've seen what you are doing. You have sterilized all the money, so there's no money to execute demand.
Mr. Speaker, we are saying that annual average inflation should be less or equal to 5%. Ghana is doing 3.2% to 5.4%. Mr. Speaker, this budget review is one of the best.
Now, away from Parliament, the International Monetary Fund's Executive Board has completed the sixth and final review of Ghana's $3 billion support program, paving way for a final disbursement of about $371 million. And the IMF says Ghana's performance under the program has been broadly satisfactory, helping the country stabilize its economy after its worst crisis in a generation. According to IMF Deputy Managing Director Boli, sustained reforms along with favorable commodity prices have helped stabilize the Ghanaian economy and reduce debt risk. Ghana's first sought IMF support in 2022 after debt services costs soared due to years of overspending, the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and high global interest rates factor that weakened the cedi and pushed inflation higher. The IMF noted that Ghana's comprehensive debt restructuring is now largely complete and its risk of debt distress has fallen back to moderate. Watching the Breakfast News live on GTV. Now, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mr. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, says 55 Ghanaians recruited in a fight in Russia-Ukraine war have been killed, with 2 others currently being held in Ukraine as prisoners of war. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, Mr. Ablakwa said about 272 Ghanaians are believed to have been recruited into the conflict since 2022, many through false promises of employment in sectors including construction, hospitality, logistics, and security.
Information received during my visit to Kiev indicated that approximately 272 Ghanaian nationals are believed to have been recruited into the conflict since 2022, with an estimated 55 reported dead and 2 currently being held as prisoners of war, whom we continue to negotiate their release. And I must say, the talks are proving very positive, and we are really optimistic about the outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it is estimated that 1,780 African nationals from 36 countries are supposedly fighting on the Russian side. Many such victims were recruited through false promises of employment in construction, hospitality, logistics, and security services before being compelled to undergo military training and deployment to combat zones. The government has initiated diplomatic engagements with the relevant authorities to establish the identities and welfare of affected Ghanaians, while working with domestic security agencies to investigate recruitment networks targeting Ghanaian youth. Public education campaigns are also being undertaken to encourage prospective migrants to verify overseas employment opportunities before traveling, to remain vigilant against fraudulent recruitment schemes. I must place on record that our engagement with Russian authorities so far indicate that the Russian government is willing to work with us to unravel these human trafficking schemes.
Now, Now, 2 Ghanaians have been killed in South Africa amid renewed xenophobic attacks targeting foreign nationals. The Foreign Minister, Mr. Simon Okudzeto-Ablakwa, disclosed this at a news conference in Accra, where he provided an update on the situation and outlined measures being taken by the government to protect Ghanaian nationals in South Africa.
During this period, we regret to confirm that 2 Ghanaians have lost their lives. Besides some of our nationals losing property and assets, a 44-year-old Ghanaian national and father of 3, Mr. Bashiru Isaac, was brutally murdered in Khayelitsha, Cape Town, when violent anti-immigrants we suspect gunned him down without any provocation. I shall now provide an update on the killing of the second Ghanaian, Mr. Kwejo Enchi. And all apologies to the great musician Kwejo Enchi. This is another Kwejo Enchi, and we don't want any panic. Our venerable musician is still alive. This is another Kwejo Enchi. Killing cannot be accepted and must be condemned and should not have occurred in the first place, and would therefore continue to demand the arrest and prosecution of those responsible for this gruesome murder. This demand has been communicated directly to the South African authorities and reiterated at the highest political level. The government is committed to pursuing all appropriate diplomatic and legal avenues to ensure that justice is served. In the midst of all of these challenges, the government has strived to maintain the country's relations with South Africa to be cordial. It is in this context that the President received South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, who was designated by President Cyril Ramaphosa as a special envoy to deliver a message to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama on the measures being implemented by the South African government in response to the incidents and to reaffirm South Africa's commitment to protecting all persons lawfully resident within its territory.
Now let's go to Nigeria, where Nigeria's authority have seized thousands of kilograms of illicit drugs in a week-long anti-narcotics operations centered on a commercial hub of Lagos, underscoring the country's growing role in international drug trafficking. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, or NDLEA, said the haul included more than 2 tons of cannabis hidden inside imported vehicles at Apapa port, cocaine concealed in food cartons destined to the United Kingdom, and large quantities of opiates and other narcotics intercepted at Lagos port and airport. Several suspects were arrested during the operation. Now, while major drug seizures were not uncommon in Nigeria, the latest operation highlights the country's increasing importance as a transit hub for international trafficking network, moving narcotics between Africa, Europe, and other global markets. Now, away from Nigeria, let's go to South Africa, where the country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is calling on African countries to cooperate on migration. His appeal to the Pan-Africa Parliament follows a week of anti-migration protests led by groups who blame undocumented migrants for unemployment, crime, and strain on public services. President Ramaphosa warned that unmanaged cross-border movements could undermine security and social order, and said no country should address the challenge alone. And this is where we end the Breakfast News live on GTV. For more news update, please do log on to our website at gbcghanaonline.com, as on all our social media platforms at GTV Ghana. There's more coming up on the Breakfast Show this morning. Don't miss any of our segments. Please stick with us after this break. I am Parliamentary.